Hey, welcome back to our Wake Up Conversations. Here, joined by my buddy, Peabod.
Hello.
We're talking mental health, kind of navigating through those spaces. The last episode, we talked about kind of like if you're that person who doesn't get like that somebody's in their mental health journey, how can you help? Asking that question, how do I love the best? We're gonna go back to the other side of the conversation, right? And you know, the pandemic hit, you were struggling with your own, you know, you discovered that silence that like, now I gotta be in my brain. And now I need some help. I'm realizing I need some help. And you went on a journey with therapy, like figuring out, like, we know that therapy now has become a little bit normal part of our conversations in society. What was your journey? How did you even take those first steps to even realize that you needed that therapy support?
Right, absolutely. We were joking beforehand, like, you know, when you guys were thinking about this podcast, like, who should we get? Oh, Peabod has a lot of mental health problems. Let's ask it. I'm totally kidding. I talk about this a lot. So, definitely happy to dive into the therapy world. So, I think that, like, growing up, okay, let me back up. There's been a huge shift in the conversation around therapy. I feel like even in the last 5 years, it's so much more normal to talk about going to therapy. And I think that it used to be this kind of thing where, like, you didn't want to admit it to anybody. Right. Like, you might not even know anyone who would tell you that they went to therapy because there was, like, some embarrassment around it. And I think that happens for a lot of reasons. But for me, I don't know that I would have thought to do it on my own. I was having anxiety attacks, and at the time I didn't know that that's what they were. I just was having these moments and was kind of freaking out. And my wife, who has gone through some anxiety on her own, and has gone to therapy, and that's been really helpful for her. She suggested it to me. And so it took somebody who is outside of the situation looking in to kind of say, this might be for you. And I think that's significant because I think for a lot of us, the idea of therapy in our brains is like, you know, we have the kind of sitcom image of, like, you walk into this, like, stuffy office and you lay down on a couch and they're, you know, writing on a clipboard, and that's not what modern therapy is today, for the most part. I mean, my therapist would probably be cool if I laid down on a couch. She'd probably be like, yeah, man, take a load off. Nice. But it's not like, I think the biggest thing is you go, oh, well, that's for someone with real problems. That's for someone with really big issues. Certainly that can't apply to me. And I think that's actually something that keeps a lot of people from getting the help they need. And for the record, not even just in mental health stuff, but in any kind of problem you're facing, downplaying what we're going through, saying it's not that bad, I'm okay, it's, you know, I'm just a little off. Instead of recognizing, like, I don't feel good, I don't feel like myself, something's off here, maybe I need some help. I think, like, we hear in all kinds of genres of brokenness, I guess, where people say there's no shame in asking for help. And it's like, you hear that and you believe that until it's for you. And so, you know, I was in this place where, like, something was not going right in my brain. I could not figure it out on my own. And it took my wife saying, I think maybe you could add a teammate to the mix. Like, maybe you don't have to do this on your own. And it's weird because it sounds cliche, you know, there's no shame in asking for help, but I think that's really what it comes down to is owning, like, maybe this is for me. Maybe getting another teammate to look at this thing together with me is for me, and maybe I don't have to just, like, white knuckle it and run through the wall. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You talked about the things that hold us back from maybe seeking that help through therapy, and I know in my situation, my reality, the culture that I grew up in, Hispanic culture, very masculine, you know, dominated, very much like we're going to figure out our own stuff. We came here from our countries. We came to America. Right. We work hard. And, pain means nothing. Struggle means nothing. And we're just going to, like you said, white knuckle it, right? And that's almost to the point where you start feeling weak. Like if I admit that I'm struggling, what I'm really admitting is that I'm weak and that I'm not a strong enough person on the inside. And then that has its repercussions inside of my society, which now will look at me and say like, oh, you are weak. You can't be depended upon. You're less than. So the best thing to do in that situation, this is what your internal conversation is. Just keep it to yourself. Just figure it out. Don't tell anybody, and you'll get through it, right? And I've seen people crash and burn, or families fall apart, or whatever. And I'll even say my own family fell apart. My parents, aren't together anymore, and I think that's part of the issue, like not dealing with the stuff, right? And just and we pretend a lot in our culture, especially the Hispanic church culture, which is like everybody smiles, everybody looks good, and everybody just assumes, oh, they're great, and we know deep down nobody's great.
Dude, I think that's huge, and I think regardless of what background you come from, I think that probably most people could relate to this idea that's like, I know I have some sort of weakness in me. I know I have something not right, but I can't show it. I think that's, and obviously maybe some cultures more than others, or some upbringings more than others, but I think that, like you're saying, one way or another, that stuff's gonna come out, and it might come out sideways. It might, hit an innocent bystander, and so I think that's why that's why we're having this conversation, is to hopefully help people feel like, hey, you have permission to not have it all figured out. You have permission to not be perfect, to not have to be strong all the time. And, I think especially as believers, like, we believe that the Lord gives us strength, and that we are so infinitely small in comparison to Him. And it's easy to lose sight of that and get caught up in needing to be perfect. And that absolutely can be a huge reason why people don't address what they're going through and how they're feeling.
I had someone reach out to me from my church, and was struggling, like with a very significant issue. I don't want to minimize what this person was going through, but the conversation from this person was, I'm not sure I can function in my role at the church because I'm going through this. And is it better for me to just kind of like disappear into the shadows? Right. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's the right thing to do, because what we're trying to do here is create a space where people can struggle and find the support that they need. And if we just let you just disappear, then what are we saying? We're basically saying that, no, keep it to yourself, just go away, and we'll act like it never happened. So my encouragement was, no, it's okay. Bring it to the group that you're a part of, and let's work through it together. But it's so hard because, like you said, I'm in either a leadership role, or I'm a pastor. What if I stood up in front of my congregation and said, guys, I'm not together. Like, I'm really struggling right now. Does it diminish my leadership in a way that I can't now do the calling of God? So that's a hard one for me.
Yeah, dude. Yes, I think you're spot on with that, and it brings to mind that verse from one of Paul's letters, where he's saying, like, in our weakness, we are made strong. Like, and I think there's something really beautiful about. If you were to actually take that step, and if you're having a moment or having a season that's hard, if you were obviously there's some parameters to it. In pastoral care, like you can't just always be like your most raw self on stage. But being able to say, this is a story that happened to me. This is something that I'm walking through. I'm not perfect. I'm not the guy. I'm not Jesus. I want to be like him, but like at the end of the day, I think any of us getting into any sort of role that's in front of people, and that could be as simple as being a mom, being a dad, being an older brother, or like I have a little platform, like doing this music thing where some people only know me as an artist, and so it's part of the reason why I was excited to do this is I get to go, I struggle sometimes, and that doesn't make me look very cool. That doesn't make me look like I have it all figured out, but I don't. And I think that's the thing is we all kind of end up believing this lie that pretty much everyone else has it figured out except me.
Yes.
But the thing is we all think that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So you're on this journey. You figured out you need help. Your wife helped you realize that. So what were the steps that came next so that you can find the right situation where you can get the help that you needed? Yes,
absolutely. So I guess for people watching, if you're in this place where you're going, okay, I think that is me. I think I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, maybe I do need some help. Okay. I think that we were talking, there's kind of a few specific things that you can do that I think are like the teammates that you could introduce to your system or to your team. And so obviously a therapist is a great one. It's not something to be scared of, especially if you find a good therapist. It should feel like, it should just make you feel confident. And obviously it's a little nerve-wracking to step out and trust someone with your feelings and what's going on.
But how do you get there? How do you get to a place where you're talking to somebody and you know, oh, this is the person?
Totally, right. Yeah, it's like you just Google therapist. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's star ratings, right? But is that enough? Like only do 5 stars or whatever.
Right, totally. No, that's a really good question. For my experience, I reached out to a friend of mine who I knew had gone through something similar.
Okay.
And I said, hey man, I'm having a hard time. Do you have any recommendations for therapists? And he connected me with a few people. And so basically what I did is I kind of made a short list of names from people that I trusted that sounded like good fits for me. And that might be different for different people. I think it's definitely worthwhile to find a Christian counselor if you can, but also someone who like has a degree in psychology.
Well,
I think
expertise,
right? Totally. Because I think like there's obviously a ton of value in like let's say pastoral counseling, for example. Yeah. That's its own type of counseling that has a ton of value. And there's a whole different genre of mental health things. It's like you need someone with a master's or a doctorate in the mind to help out. And hopefully they're a believer too, and they can kind of like hold those things in tension and bring it together. So I had my list of some Christian counselors I was really excited about. And I just started calling them up. Most therapists will do a free 20 to 30 minute consultation, so you can kind of get a sense of their vibe and their style, and they usually are kind of prepared to, because most people are like, I don't even know what to ask you, so that they'll say, hey, this is kind of typically what I specialize in. These are the kind of things I work towards with my patients. These are the things I've addressed in the past. But really, what I found is you're kind of looking for in those conversations, like, who do I feel safe with? Like, who do I feel like I could trust? So there were 2 main therapists that I was kind of interested in, and I called both of them. And the first guy I really hit it off with. I just had a good feeling in my gut. I was like, I like what this guy's saying, and he has like a gentleness to him that makes me feel like I can lean in and trust him. And the next guy I talked to totally knew his stuff, really awesome therapist, but I just didn't feel that same sort of connection. And what was crazy is in that second conversation with a guy I wasn't vibing with, he told me, he was like, well, hey, I know you're interviewing with some other therapists, and I just want to say, pay attention to what your gut is telling you. That very well may be the Holy Spirit, and he might be leading you to somebody.
Yeah.
And so, and he even prayed for me that I would find the right person, and I did not choose him.
Okay.
You know? And I'm so grateful that he said that, because it gave me, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in my decision making at that time because I was so anxious. And it gave me this extra boost that I really needed to say, I can trust my gut that I felt safe talking to this other person. So that's the first thing is I'd make a list, ask some people around you who they trust, and if you have to go online, you can definitely do that. There's a ton out there, but get picky. The next thing I'd say about finding a therapist is like you're hiring them. So at the end of the day, it's not up to, a good therapist should push you and make you uncomfortable sometimes, but not to an extent where you don't feel safe anymore. And so if it takes a minute to find the right person, that's okay. Cause, and if you have a couple sessions and you're like, this isn't for me, you can change therapists, and that's okay. It's riding the line between going, I know I need to commit to a relationship with a therapist so they can actually learn my stuff and actually help me, and knowing at the end of the day, I have some control over who I trust and who I decide to be vulnerable with.
Therapy sounds like it's been great for you. It's been valuable. Do you see that this is something that is going to be just kind of part of your existence moving forward in your story? Because I think sometimes I wonder if people think like, okay, I got to get to a certain place and then I don't need it, or maybe it just continues on, or maybe there isn't one answer for each person.
I do think it changes for people. I will say I'm not in therapy right now.
Okay.
I did like a solid 2 years.
Okay.
And then took a break for a while. And my therapist told me, he was like, my goal is not for you to stay in therapy forever.
Okay.
The goal is not to need it forever. That said, I'm thinking about going back for a season, just to go. A lot has happened in my life. There's a lot coming up in my life. I could really use this person who I trust, on my team again. Less in the way that I needed him in the past of going my brain is crazy and I'm freaking out and I don't know what to do. Now it's more like a tune-up kind of thing. And so I think it's different for different people. I know people with really chronic OCD or depression where it's really valuable to have someone that they can meet with regularly, and that's just going to be a part of their life for the next season. And maybe they'll get to a point where that's not necessary. Yeah. I think there's no shame. It's just working with your therapist and establishing that trust. And sometimes that trust means going, I think it would actually be good to take a break for a little while to see how I do outside of therapy now that I have these tools, now that I have this experience.
Seems like what you're saying is that therapy is a tool. It's one of the tools that you can take advantage of in the season that you're in.
Yep.
But it's not the only tool. There are others, because I'm sure that when you stopped for a season, you didn't stop working on your mental health.
Absolutely.
There were other things that you were taking advantage of and putting in practice and in place that helped you as well.
100%, yeah. And another one of those, and this is something that a therapist would help you with too, not you, the general you. Or you, if you want it.
Sure, yeah. I need all the help I can get too.
Therapy, I think therapy is a valuable tool for anyone who wants it. I think it can totally benefit you. But the cool thing is you do learn some practical things. So one, for example, it sounds super basic, but some breathing techniques. There are some specific, one term is box breathing, where you breathe in for a certain amount of seconds, you hold it for a certain amount of seconds, and then you let go for a certain amount of seconds. And
you said that's called box breathing?
Box breathing. Yeah, that's one technique. But really, there's lots of deep breathing exercises that the whole point is when you breathe in this way, it literally physically slows down your heartbeat and helps you just helps you regulate the physical side of your anxiety or whatever's going on. Because sometimes that can spiral out of control, and calming your body down can be a huge step to helping your brain to calm down. So that's one thing. I also know For some people, sometimes like clenching all of your muscles for like a minute and then releasing them is another way that you can kind of do that. And there's lots of more. Those are some really basic practical things, but there's other practical kinds of tools you can learn. Another thing is more in your mind than physical. It's just asking yourself questions, going, what am I feeling right now? Is there a place in my body that I'm feeling this anxiety? Like for me, it's in my stomach a lot. Okay. And for some people, it's in like the back of their neck or in their shoulders. Like, are you carrying this tension somewhere? And even just asking the question, am I feeling anxious right now? Because a lot of times, at least for me, anxiety can be kind of a sneaky thing. Okay. Like something can set you off and then all of a sudden you're uneasy. You're not really sure what's going on at first. You just know you're not quite right. And when you're able to go, oh, is this anxiety? And name it, sometimes that's really helpful because you can go, I have tools to move through this. Like breathing, like, if you're in therapy and you've pointed out some things in your story that maybe made you react to something, you can go, I know why that's affecting me. I'll get through it. This kind of stuff. And then the last tool that really is kind of going to set us up for our next episode is community. Okay. And the cool thing I think about that is it's bringing people in who maybe aren't experts in the situation or in mental health, but they just love you. And that's where, finding an awesome church is really valuable. Having a close group of friends is really valuable. Being vulnerable with your loved ones, your family, your closest friends is really valuable. But that's been a huge tool for me too, is I have other friends who have gone through similar things, who get it, who know where I'm at. And honestly, even friends who have straight up told me like, I don't have anxiety, I don't know what you're going through, but like, tell me what you need and I'm here for you. Mm-hmm. And that has been incredibly valuable for me as I've walked from seasons of unhealth to a little more health. Yeah.
So therapy, you have techniques that you've learned, and then you have your community, and these three things are some tools that you're using to manage your mental health moving forward. Yep. Wow. And you felt like with those three tools, you've been able to keep yourself in a place where you're feeling good, where you're managing and you're thriving. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it too is learning with those tools that the expectation, like we talked about last time, isn't to go, oh, if I do this breathing, the anxiety is going to dissipate and I'm going to be gone. Right. The expectation is these things are going to help me when I have a wave, a pang of anxiety. These things are going to help me get through it and know I'm going to be okay. I still feel anxious right now, but this is going to pass. Like, they're all waves of, all feelings are waves that kind of wash over us, and eventually it will pass and it'll get better.
So it sounds like one of the things you're saying is that we're moving from, we're not trying to cure your anxiety. We're working at managing it well.
Yes.
Because it sounds like you're, and I don't know, maybe there's some miraculous healing of the Lord or some medical, breakthrough that'll happen that will eliminate anxiety forevermore. Right. I don't know. But in the meantime, you're accepting the reality that this is part of your life, right? Yes. And that I just got to figure out how to deal with this truth and still be Peabod and do well and be a good husband and be a good artist and be a good man of God, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. And I think that in that, it's not necessarily, I think a lot of times people can go, either I believe these things are going to fix my situation, or I believe it's never going to get better. And I think really what these tools are doing is going, I think that maybe for me, healing is a slow process. Maybe it's not a snap of a fingers. Not that God can't do that. I've heard stories where people change, but there's all kinds of science about, people talk about if you have a response to a certain stimulant, like let's say, just as an example, let's say that like if you talked at a loud volume, let's say that was something that caused anxiety in me because of something in my story in my past. There is science, this isn't the right term for it, but there is science that shows that like our brains will like learn these neural pathways where it's like volume from another person equals I need to have anxiety right now because I'm in danger. And so it takes time. Part of the management of those feelings is you are slowly teaching your brain to go, I don't have to go straight from this to this.
Gotcha.
I can go a different place. And that takes a long time to do that kind of like cognitive like rewiring almost. And so so the cool thing is there are things that used to set me off that don't anymore.
Oh, okay.
And I'm still a human and I still have days where I'm really exhausted or there's difficult circumstances, and those might make me fall into some old grooves that I've learned to not go there anymore. So I think there's an acceptance that it's like I'm imperfect and this process is slow, but by using these tools and by trusting that the Holy Spirit inhabits these tools and will meet me in them,
right,
there is healing that is available. It just might take a little longer than we'd hope for it to. Yeah.
And there you go. So you've heard the tools that Peabod's using. These could be tools that you could take advantage of in your mental health journey, and trust that we're praying that you will find the process that's going to help you manage this. So glad you could join us for this conversation. Hope you join us for the next ones as well. So like, share, and subscribe. That'll let you know when the next episode is up, because we got some great conversations coming up about mental health with Peabod. Thanks again for being with us, and I hope you can join us for the next one.